everyone, my name is Nikki and you're welcome to Respite. Today we'll be talking about, I have someone amazing. Let me start from there. To be joining me today in this session of our recording. But before I go into that, if you haven't liked, subscribed, or shared this link today, please feel free to do so. And make sure that you click on the bell icon so that you receive notifications anytime we are online. All right, so let me go back to what I was saying. I have someone amazing, Susanna. I call her. I think she's the embodiment of knowledge. Allow me to say it that way, So, what this today I have with me Dr. Jadisola Papawaram, and today we'll be looking at autism as a spectrum. I thought it would be important for us to shed more light, where autism is concerned, what it's not, what it is, what it's not, what it looks like, So welcome, Dr. Jadis.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us today. So do you want to give us a brief background about yourself so at least people will know? I know I said doctor, they might not know what kind of doctor. Doctor, book doctor, medical doctor, what kind of doctor? Do you want to give us a brief introduction and then we'll dive straight into our topic for today?
Okay, yeah. So my name is Jadis Sola Bababanu, and I'm a medical doctor. I'm a pediatrician. That's my background. I am a fellow of the West African College of Physicians and a member of the Royal College of Pediatrics and Child.If. And I've been working in pediatrics for over 10 years, I think. Yeah, I think over 10 years.
So, that's really amazing.
And so currently I do a lot of things, pediatrics and dermatology, infectious disease, renal and all that. But yeah, basically I'm a pediatrician.
Thank you so much. You guys see why I said all those names. But thank you so much for joining us. So, Dr. Jarvis, I hope you don't mind me calling you Dr. Jarvis. All right, please, can you tell us or share a bit more about autism? What exactly is autism?
Yeah, so I mean, autism is it's a word that has been used to describe a lot of things, if I would start by saying that. So, it's a word that people have referred to mean a lot of things, but it's just a term to describe a neurodevelopmental disorder, which means that it affects the brain and affects development. And development is not just limited to the brain. And development has to do with how the child grows into functions and how they go through phases in life and all that. So it might start from the brain, but it manifests in all parts of their interactions and all that. So it's a global term. It has so many aliases. It has so many things that look like it, but basically it's a disorder of social interaction, a disorder of language, and a disorder of actions, or a disorder of function, the way I use that word. So three domains are affected in autism. You have the social interaction, you also have language, and you have people that have problems with repetitive motor functions, which is like repetitive actions, restricted actions, and all those things are complete. So it's a very broad thing, to be honest, very broad. There's so many things that are under autism, and they refer to it now as a spectrum.
Yeah. Okay.
So there are children that will have like the lower end of the spectrum, and children that will have the very upper end, like very severe form of autism. So, and then there are other things that are called other names, but they're also called autism spectrum disorders. They're all looked under the same heading. So yeah.
Okay. Wow. So that means if we're to talk about autism, we'll spend,
No, it's not something. It's not something you can exhaust in just one sitting. Honestly, there are so many aspects to autism.
Okay. So do you want to please share with us why it happens? Why autism happened?
Yeah. So to be honest, I was just looking at some things recently and looking at updates on autism, and someone said doctors should not be afraid to tell people that we really don't know why it happens. Yeah. So, but what we do know is that it is multifactorial. So we know that there is a part where genetics comes into play. There is a part where the environment comes into play. There is a part where the immune function comes into play, and all of these things are just kind of working together to produce the symptoms in these children. So if you have a genetic predisposition, that means there's a mutation in the genes of this child that says that this child can have autism. If you don't have the environmental enablement, if you don't have the inflammatory or immunologic enablement, that might never surface. So you have a number of things that need to be working at the same time to produce the symptoms in these children. So that's how autism works. So we do know that there are some genetic problems that by default they come with autism. So sometimes children that have things like tuberous sclerosis, which is a genetic thing that has a known gene mutation, the children usually would have autism. So it will come with it. But we do know that some children don't have any genetic mutation and then they have autism. Some of them it's from maybe exposure to some environmental toxins. But it's important to know that there is not just one thing. Nobody has been able to say this is the definite cause, so that people don't go about blaming themselves and maybe because I got exposed to this when I was pregnant or that. So it's important to know it's multifactorial. We do not have all the answers yet. So many things come into play, and some of them would come at different stages of the child's life. So yeah, it's just
Wow, it's actually how it sounds like a lot, but hey, I'm not here to make it sound daunting. It's just to shed more light as to to what autism is. So can you please explain to us how is it diagnosed? How do you just come to that conclusion that this child has autism?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So again, it's because this is a multifactorial thing, and there is no test, there is no blood test to say, we're going to check your blood and see if you have autism. So it's the diagnosis of autism now is usually made by a group of people. So not one person looks at one child and says you have autism. At best, they can say we suspect that this child has autism. So what usually starts off the suspicion of autism is the behavior of the child. So there are certain things you'll be looking at in a child to achieve. There are certain milestones you expect them to achieve at a particular time. And then you're watching for that, and if they're not achieving that, the parent gets concerned, they talk to the GP, or the first doctor to see refers them to the pediatrician. The pediatrician has to kind of hold a conference with the community pediatrician, the general pediatrician, the speech therapist, all of those guys are going to come together and look at all the symptoms this child is presenting with. So with autism, it usually starts early in life. So before you say a child has autism, it's not something that you diagnose for the very first time without any suspicion in the teenage years. No, it's unlikely. You might have autism that became manifest in the teenage years, but the parents will usually be able to tell you that, we have started noticing these things in tiny bits from an early age. So things parents would notice would be things like, this child at 12 months, they're not responding to your name, they don't respond to social cues, you hug them, they don't hug you back, you blow them kisses, they don't reciprocate social gestures. You can't communicate to them with the eyes, you can't use body language, they don't just get it, So that's how. Then you can also notice some language deficiencies in the child. So things like, they didn't speak on time, or their words are not matching their age, delayed speech or no speech at all. And then sometimes you can also notice some repetitive, restricted behaviors. So they like to maybe flap their hands, they're obsessed, abnormally obsessed with certain things, certain sensory stimulants gets them very excited, all those things, parents have those concerns. They might not have it in the words I'm using, but they just know there's something off. So they go to the pediatrician, go to the GP, they hold kind of a big conference, and then it's not just the parents that usually would raise these concerns before they make a diagnosis. They also need input outside of the home. Because I think we're still going to talk about things that look like autism. Some children are shy. And then when they are at home, they are different. But in school, the teacher says, they don't talk. They don't play with their peers. But when they get home, they are different. So you need input from the school, from the family. These concerns are brought together. Several professionals come together to look at this child, look at what you're concerned about, and then it's a joint diagnosis they make. So they are instruments. They're actually like, how would I call them, like questionnaires or forms that you tick things. You're looking at every domain: speech, delayed social interaction, repetitive behavior. So you're looking at specific things at specific age, and then when you put all that together, there are scores that will say this is very likely to be autism. So that's how the diagnosis is usually arrived at.
And who comes to that conclusion?
It's usually multidisciplinary. So the community pediatrician is the head of the...
Is it like, it's going to be like a team of people?
A team of people.
Okay.
So it's not safe for one person to tell a parent that their child has autism because they are probably not multidisciplinary. They cannot be a doctor, occupational therapist, speech therapist,
Yeah.
So those people to also have to evaluate this child and say, okay, we agree that this, from our side, this looks like autism.
Okay.
Because like we said in the beginning, it's a disorder that affects several domains. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that. I know before we began to shoot the video, you were talking about. I really don't know how to pronounce it, but you were talking about some other things that come as a result of autism. And that's layman's English. I know you have some very big word for that, but are you able to share what are the other things that come alongside with autism?
So because these children have a lot of things going on, it will produce some behaviors that can make them at risk of certain comorbidities. That was the word I used. So comorbidities are things that they are like when someone has, okay, to be very, the example coming to my head is like when you have malaria and then you have headache, fever will be there. Around the corner, just hovering around, body aches will be there, So they just they are things that walk hand in hand with autism sometimes. They don't have malaria, they don't have joint pain, but they have headache, they have fever, So it's not 100% that you see.
You see it, or more like COVID-19. Maybe that's one that a lot of people
can relate to. So some people have loss of sense of smell or something, but they don't have the runny nose or the cough. But they'll tell you that 90% of people with COVID-19 would have fever.
True.
So something like that. So children with autism have some things that are associated with.
Okay.
Sorry. I went on about comorbidities. It's just the medical terms talking.
I'm just trying to make sure that everybody can understand, what it is and but it's fine. Just please go on.
So the association, sometimes the research has shown that some children would have depression, they would have anxiety because they have that. And it's not because the autism in itself is like the cause of but it's a byproduct of having that. They're frustrated with their inability to communicate, to express themselves. So they kind of maybe could withdraw into themselves, or they could have ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So they become more hyperactive. They're trying to compensate for the things they are not able to express. Sometimes so it comes. Some people have said sleep disturbances is a comorbidity, it's an association with autism, and that would be because sometimes they become overstimulated. So because children with autism have this sensory awareness, they become very easily stimulated with either lights, sounds. Our normal senses that we can regulate sound. You hear a big noise, you just look to the direction and you just continue what you're doing. For them, it's a major, it just sets them off. They can go into another kind of symptom presentation that way. So maybe a child that was perfectly fine in class, happy and everything, somebody just makes it very loud, maybe persistent noise, sets them off, and then they can't function again, they can't read, they can't do anything in class again. And then they come across as people that don't know that they have autism. They can come across them as maybe disruptive because they're now they're shouting, they're agitated, and everybody's alarmed because they don't know why they've gone that way. But the sound that I would react to
in a different way,
they would react to it. So sleep can be disturbed that way. Maybe they've gotten exposed to bright lights just before bedtime, and then, or even it might just be sound, it might just be soft, it might not even be light. Maybe they're just taking all the precaution, but they just have this sleep disturbance from the sensory stimulation that you don't even know they're coming in touch with. And so sleep disturbances, anxiety, depression. When they grow older, some children can have conduct disorders. They are more prone to get involved in crimes and things like that. Not because they are they have a problem with crime, but because of it's like a byproduct of having autism, something like that. So those are some of the comorbidities they could have. Some of them this is important because I remember once there was a child that had, this was way back in Nigeria, there was a child that had, there was a case scenario we were discussing, not a child that we had seen, just a case discussion. And then they were saying that this child had long-term bleeding and bleeding from the gums and all that, and everybody was trying to unravel why this child, they had done all the tests, they had done everything, and then they found out that this child only ate was it cereal, they would not, because in autism we said they have restrictive or repetitive behaviors.
Yeah.
This child could only take a particular type of diet. So imagine taking cereal morning, afternoon, night for 2 years.
Wow.
Would not take any other thing. And that's something I've actually forgotten. They want a pattern. They like sameness. They don't like any disruption of routine. So they like, when I wake up, I wear my shoes, I go to the toilet, I come out, there's breakfast, I eat, I wear my this thing, then I go. If you try to alter that, sets them off.
Okay.
So this child only wanted this food. Anytime the parents tried to introduce any other food, the child would get very upset. So they kind of stuck to that food. It was growing, but then it became very deficient in vitamin C. And then started bleeding from the gums, started having all this, and they were thinking, oh, is it child abuse? Is it something, And so just to say that it's a comorbidity, undernutrition, overnutrition, nutritional deficiencies, just as a result of having autism and preferring the same thing.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So my question now is, would it be safe to, these comorbidities for people that don't have a diagnosed child? I know we are going to still talk about what autism looks like. Would it be safe to make an assumption that these things you've mentioned now are kind of like signs that for someone that doesn't know or that a child has autism, or is a bit just not,
so people don't get too worried when you see certain things. So I think this would help. So if you are suspecting autism in a child, you have to look at it in 3 domains, like I said before: language, and then social interactions, and repetitive or restricted behaviors. So if you are having just a child that just prefers to eat one thing alone and nothing else, I don't think you should be thinking about autism.
So does it have to be in those
3 domains have to be affected.
Okay.
Yeah, they have to be affected. But there are so many variants of autism that people are talking about now, that they will say, oh, this is a high functioning autism. You would not even know this child has autism. Wow. It's just because so people might say, oh, that might mask the autism. But I wouldn't worry if my toddler has decided to eat rice 3 times a day for 1 week or 2 weeks.
Okay.
I wouldn't worry too much about
because
that.
it's just one. It's not.
Yeah. But now a toddler is preferring to eat the same food month in, month out. He's not talking at 2 years, and is not reciprocating socially. You take them to the playground, they're not playing with other children, they don't want to, they're not interacting. You, even the mom, you come back from work, hug them, they don't return your hug, they don't understand social cues, then I'm
Thank you so much. Thank you. So, what is autism? What is not autism? What it looks like?
Okay.
You have touched it in one of the things,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to just have it set apart, time for us to talk about
What is not autism.
What is not autism?
Yeah, so what is not autism? A shy child. So that's why it's important that you look at it not just in the family setting, but outside of the home. What does the child do? So a shy child, you will notice that they are free at home. Is a teacher that would be concerned about autism, not the parent.
Not the parent, yeah.
And in our environment, the teacher is concerned, it's valid. So they're going to probably, the parent might say, well, the teacher has said this, then we'll go check it out. But when the parent gives account of their own experience, and the teacher gives them, the doctors can determine, or the professionals can determine, no, it's not occurring outside in more than one environment. Yeah. An abused child can also come across as autism, a neglected child. So a child that is neglected will be withdrawn. They'll be so withdrawn, but if you get them into the right environment, with the right psychologist, with people trying to get through to them, you will notice that they can actually talk. They can actually, you just need some. That is why autism diagnosis is never a one-man. It's never. Once you have just one person telling you your child has autism, it's not something I'm very comfortable with. So everybody needs the psychologist has to engage this child and tell you from their perspective that I think this is autism. So yeah, a shy child, an abused child will be a child. Some children that have some other developmental problems, they are prone to have autism, but they might not have it. But people might assume that they have it. Yeah. So a child who has, for example, maybe mental retardation from any other thing, but because they cannot play with their peers, so people might assume that they have autism. Yeah. So a child, for example, some children have seizures. They have what's it called, seizure disorder. Yeah, and then because in autism you have repetitive behaviors like flapping the hands or something, or blinking repeatedly, or doing some awkward movements that are not normal. So a child that has seizure disorder might be having a proper seizure, and they think, oh, she does this from time to time. Maybe it's autism. And then they might confuse that for autism. So it might be a mimic of autism. You just need a multidisciplinary approach to
it.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's our key. It's not a word, key phrase. Multidisciplinary approach.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that have really helped from that. So can you please tell us, what does a child with autism need? What do you think a child with autism need?
Yeah, thank you very much. They need a lot of supports from when you begin to suspect that this child has autism. This will usually be at the level of the parents. I know that for many parents, it is something no parent really wants to deal with. Nobody's looking forward to their child having autism. But once this diagnosis has been made, then the support has to start from the parents.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they need to access care early, and that care has to be again multidisciplinary. So they need to have named doctors looking after them, people that you can say, this is my child's doctor, so that if you have questions, queries, you need referrals, you need tests, you can always talk to these people and they can facilitate it for you. They will need a speech therapist most times. They will need an occupational therapist that will help them to make sense of their environment, because they would look at your classroom setting, your home setting, what do you need to achieve your potential. They cannot compare you with your other classmates, so they need to kind of think of what would support you to be able to compare with your classmates, so to speak. So yeah, they need occupational therapists, they need speech therapists, they need psychologists, they need dietitians most times, because many of them have restrictive eating habits, so they would only eat a particular type of food. So the dietitians have to kind of look for ways to introduce things into their diets to help them grow optimally. They need educational support. So they are the kind of children that before they even start school, the school has to be ready for them. They might need one-on-one, educational support, so that they have like their own teacher, their own, somebody who understands their needs and can communicate and can get them to interpret their needs and.
Okay. Can I ask a question? I know you're answering a question, but from what you just said, because I met someone recently and she was just trying to tell me that her child got extra support from school. Like they just said they just needed to attach someone to the child to just help the child. So now the child has not been diagnosed with anything. What can you say for people that are in that category that have some form of extra support at school? Should they be? Yeah, I know you said multidisciplinary approach, but should it kind of like trigger concerns? Should they be thinking about, okay, should I have this child checked?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I get what you mean now. So yeah, there are so many reasons why a child will need educational support, not just autism. So if a child needs educational support, then there should be like a medical inquiry into why that child needs. So it's not going to be a decision of the school. It's going to be something backed by medical evidence. So sometimes the doctors have to send a document to the school to say this child needs educational support.
Okay. Maybe I'll have to probe more to find out. Okay.
Because I don't think a mom can just go to the school and say my child is.
No, it was actually the case of the school saying that, we're just going to give your child one-to-one support because we feel that he needs one-to-one support in school. So maybe I have to go back and ask more something. We'll do that.
Because just to say that there are some children that they don't even they have physical disabilities, not like neurodevelopmental. So they need like a wheelchair access, and then they can't stay in school for more than 4 hours a day. And when they are there, they would rather, they can't catch it because the class has 8 hours. So they might need one-on-one. So there are children that are dyslexic, and that's another thing that people confuse with autism sometimes. ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Some people, I know you say, autistic children, people just feel they'll be quiet and withdrawn. Some of them can actually be hyper. And then some children that just have a pure ADHD can be thought to have autism. I don't know if it's making sense that
Yeah,
way,
I
right?
understand. I think from what you said, it's kind of like a topic that's not it's broad, so
It's
it
really
depends
very
on
broad.
where or how you want to look at it or where you are looking at it from. Or yeah. So sorry, I was when I interrupted you. Do you want to go back to what you
Okay.
were
Yeah,
saying?
so I was talking about educational support,
Yeah.
and then very important is also support for the parents
Sure.
of children
I
with
think that was the
autism.
next thing we're supposed to
Yeah.
talk about.
Very
So
important.
what kind of support do you think parents need?
So the first support that I would advocate that parents should have is support in terms of coping with the needs of taking care of those children. So because sometimes they need round the clock care. So they might need care agencies that take some hours of them, and
to
they can
give
have
them
time.
respite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, that's the one I want to respect. So they might need people that take that child out of their hands for some time, so that they can, because if they're not careful, they are looking after this child from morning till they go to bed, and they'll do it for several years. So it can really be daunting. They can go on family holidays. The other kids cannot get enough time, so they usually would need some care support. Might not be a lot, but at least some time to themselves. And then parent support groups, there are so many of them.
And please, would you be able to share that with us? Maybe we'll try and drop it in the
Yes,
list of
I'll look
those
up names, but there are so
things for
many
people, yeah.
parent support groups on the internet that you can join. And I'm sure they are on Facebook. There are some that, of course, if you search the web, you see them. So there are communities where people come together to help themselves, encourage themselves and share experiences. So I think that's very important for the parent. And also, parental support is also helping, giving parents enough information to deal with what they have, because it's daunting. We can just talk about it in 5-10 minutes and think we're done, but the person living with it is the person who feels, there's a lot of information. They're seeing the speech therapist today, there's an appointment next week for occupational, there's another one next week for language, there's another one for hearing impairment, there's another one for psychology, there's another, the list is endless. Your life just feels like an endless stream of appointments. So they need what information. Sometimes you come across and they're like, we don't even know, we're just in the hospital. We don't it's not like they've not been told, but they don't understand. It's a lot of information to digest. So yeah, ongoing, keeping them up to date, telling them at every phase, this is where we are. This is, of course, medically there is no cure, so nobody's going to tell you that, oh, we are now approaching cure. No, but of course they will tell you, oh, we are now here, we're making progress here. It could do this before, it couldn't do this before, it can now do this, it can now. So even encourage them and their spirits.
Even hearing you talk, I can see that it's a lot, because I know, because we're pressed for time, I would have loved to go in different direction, different time, but because of what we want to do here, we can't really go digress and go into some other things that we think we need to talk about. So, but thank you so much, Dr. Jadisola, for coming. Well, I think that we're going to have you back because, I'm just thinking about the person watching this, on the other side of it, watching this and thinking there's so much I still don't know, so much I still need to learn about. Thank you so much for the parent support groups that you said as well. But I feel that a lot of people need more information, more content, just something to just help or to guide through that process. Well, before we go, is there anything you'd like to say to our parents? Maybe some parents of the people watching there that are a bit scared. They really don't know, what next to do, or they're like, okay, I'm even too scared to even say that I need help or my child needs help. What do you have to say to them? So there are different categories. So people are where they're like, I'm even too scared to say anything, to just say that my child appears to be a bit different. And some people are like, okay, yeah, I've noticed some things, what do I do? And some are like, I'm lost in everything.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a whole lot. So you see, there are different people that could be watching this at different situations. So I know it's a bit hard telling to just say one thing, but if there's anything you can say to help, to support, to encourage, to share knowledge, would I appreciate that.
Yeah, so I think that for the different categories of people, if you're at the point where you don't really know, you suspect but you don't know, or you're at the point where you know but you're afraid to accept it, or you think there is a lot of information. So the first two, I think I have something to say to that. The first two, I would say that I believe that knowledge is power. If you know something, you are a step ahead in, getting solutions to it. If you don't know, because one thing that I might not have mentioned is that early access to care improves the outcomes of children with autism. So the less time parents spend, saying, no, I'm not going to accept it, or I'm not going to seek medical help, the more time they can get some support to bring the best. Because we've seen children with autism that have turned out great. I watched the show recently, and the child, she actually had to say, I have autism. And you don't look like someone that she said it was a diagnosis, and then when she went over all the things that led to the diagnosis, I was like, yeah, she did have autism. But the kind of adult she evolved into. That, I don't know, because it was something that parents kind of knew early on, and then the people started to address and all that. So I think, don't run away from knowledge. Avoidance is not a strategy to me. If you
Avoidance is not
a strategy to me. There's a problem and you're like running, hiding on that this thing. It's a coping mechanism, but it's not helpful. It's not a helpful strategy. So I think whichever, if you're there, you're not sure, or you're sure you're afraid, receive help from God to address your fears and come and face them, and then access the care your child needs while you're still, doing everything you can to get them into a better place. So I think get as much knowledge as you can. At the same time, don't go looking for things that are not there. Don't go reading everything on the internet and trying to digest everything and trying to project it on your child, because that's what will happen eventually. You start seeing autism everywhere. Your child does this, that's what they said. That's because I don't know if it was you I was telling that. I think that's when I've met parents that they have made a diagnosis of autism on their own child before even consulting anybody in their
because of what they've heard.
Even my family members, some of them have told me, our child has autism. I'm like, how did you know? They said, he's not speaking. I said, how old is he? He's 13 months. I'm like, that's why it's not good to go and read everything, and then you have so much information and you're just so even though knowledge is power, just be kind of the right knowledge, be deliberate about what you're taking in, what you're filter those sites, those advices, and then seek help as soon as you can, so that you can get a professional telling you the facts, not just some random people say, this is my experience. I still met a parent recently that told me, I think my child has autism. And I said, why do you think so? She said, I have autism. I'm like, it's not hereditary. So why did you? She said,
that's really good to know. It is not
hereditary. She said, I have autism. And I said, okay, but it's not hereditary. She said, yes, I know, but I think she flaps her arms. I'm like, children flap their arms sometimes. She said, okay, I just think I should get her checked. By all means, get her checked out. But from what you said, and this child I'm looking at, she doesn't look like she has autism.
Dr. Daddy, see, when you keep talking, I just keep 1 million questions. Before you go, this one question. You said, what's the first step for someone that has fear, that is suspecting? What's the first step that person can take? Apart from getting knowledge, what's that first step the person can take? In the UK.
Oh, in the UK. Okay. You have to contact your GP. First step.
Okay. Other parts of the world.
Other parts of the world. Okay. You have to contact your doctor. They do not have GPs, but I think before you even, once you start suspecting that your child has autism, have a timeline. Start checking things. Start recording. Have a journal. So, how old is your child? My child is 6 months. 12 months. Do they answer when you call their name? My child is 14 months. Do they show social reciprocity? When you hug them, do they hug you back? When you say kisses or something, do they respond to your social cues? My child is 18 months. Can they pretend in a play? You give them a doll. Do they know a doll? Can I feed a doll? Can I comb, brush dolls? All those kind of things. Just start documenting.
Okay.
If you document their progress, their developmental progress,
it's easy for you.
And then you start. Your suspicions are getting stronger, then talk to a medical professional. Okay. That's what I think you should do in the first phase. because you might be wrong, it might not be autism. And it might be, and if it's that, they already enter into the system and they can start to do something about it.
Okay. Oh wow, thank you so much, Dr. Jenny. Like I said,
I'm sorry if it's just a lot of medical jargon.
No. It is. I tried as much as possible to make it as simple as I could. I remember when you were saying comorbidity, and I was thinking about saying it in a different way. But thank you so much for your time. Like I know that we're going to have you back here because like 1 million questions, but time, we can't. There's really so much that we can put out as at once, for attention span reasons and other reasons. So we'll definitely have you back here. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I really enjoyed. You kind of like it. I had different like boom moments, different issues that you were just dropping. So thank you so much, for that as well. Just on my final words or final thoughts is that because I'm a believer and I believe strongly that we are able to go through things in life. I'm able to go through things in life because of my faith in God. He gives us hope for for a better tomorrow, for a brighter day. So all hope is not lost. So if you're watching this or listening to this and you're thinking it's too much for me, I don't even think I have the strength, to face whatever the situation you find yourself in. Take solace in the fact that there is God. There was one of my friends that lost someone, and I remember when I was having a chat with her, and she was saying, "Oh God, why do we have autistic children?" God, that's another topic anyway. We'll try and trash that out later on, And she was, saying, "Why did that person die?" And I asked her, I said, like, you can even go to God and talk to Him shows that there's something holding you together, that you've not lost your mind, you've not crumbled under that weight. Yes, you're angry. Yes, you have questions. But the fact that you can even talk to someone about it makes me know that you're in safe hands, as in you've not lost everything. Okay, so the fact that there is someone there that can walk through that process, will send resources to you, send help to you, it should even give you hope that it's going to be. I won't say it's going to be fine, but it's going to be fine. I say it will be well. So hold on to if you hold on to God. We'll do other videos where I'm tempted to say so much, but we really have to go for time. But there's a God out there that loves you, that loves your child, and He is for you, and He will walk with you through your journey or through this journey. So thank you once again for joining us. If you haven't liked or shared the link, please share the link to this video. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please feel free to do so, and make sure you hit that bell icon so that you receive notifications anytime we're on air. Till the next video from Dr. Daddy and I. Bye.
Bye-bye.